So if I ever played again, it would be for me this time.
You knew you were going home all week. Do you feel like you did enough to stay? Like, what was your pitch to stay?
I knew I was going home no matter what I did. And, Tiffany told me, she said, if you're left in this game, you're going to win $750,000, and we know it. And I went from being the most protected person in the game to people realizing that and becoming a huge target. So I knew I was going home. And plus, being up next to Brittany, I wasn't going to campaign against her. I would tell people, why it was best for their game for me to stay, but I was very vague about it and nonchalant, and I knew I was going home. So I really I don't want to say I tucked my tail, but I tucked my tail.
Yeah, I have to ask because, we saw you wanting to self-evict a couple times. As a fan of the show, you know how frustrating that could be just to see a player kind of give up a little bit.
That had nothing to do with the game. And that'll be the first thing I say. It had absolutely nothing to do with the game itself. It might have fueled the stress, but that wasn't why. I don't really feel comfortable getting into that because that's between Azza and I. I know the world probably watched it, but there was more going on than just that. And, I got humbled in that house quick. And like I said, that was not game related, and I'm okay with that. And as far as self-evicting, I never went in that diary room and said, can I self-evict? Mm-hmm. So yeah, I don't know really what to say about that other than it wasn't game related.
The game, I'm assuming, was different than maybe you thought. So like as a fan, I guess, what did you expect and kind of what did you learn about the game or learn about yourself when you were in there?
When you're sitting on the couch watching the game as a fan, I would always be like, oh, why did you do that? Or, but you don't see, watching the feeds, you're able to click on different cameras and see different conversations and kind of see where things are headed. When you're in that game, you only see what's in front of you. You don't see the smirks that other people make to the cameras. You don't see other conversations that are going on. Yes, those walls are thin in there and you can hear some things, but it's a lot different than being on the couch or watching the feeds. And it's mind-blowing, the difference. I went in thinking that this game was going to be super easy, and it's not. It's definitely something that tests your mindset. And on top of that, when I walked in, one, I didn't know I was going to be the old guy of the season. And two, I wasn't aware that there was going to be so many like jocks or meatheads in the house. Usually there's like 1 to 3 at the most. And when I go in there and there's like 6, I'm like, holy cow. Like I already felt like a goldfish when I walked in with a bunch of sharks. So I figured, and I immediately knew that in order to keep up with these guys, I was going to have to turn into a shark as well. And I'm not really good at being a shark. Let's just be honest.
Well, first of all, you're not old because we're the same age. So we don't see people's intentions. Like people can tell us what their intentions are, but then their actions might differ. So I do want to just ask, because I know you've seen this show before. People of color go home early, women go home early sometimes. And I know you wanted to avoid that. But then I think everyone was confused when you put up Kylan and Alyssa. So can you kind of explain that situation?
Absolutely. When you're HOH, normally in past seasons, you got a big pool of people to choose from. And with everything that happened, the wildcard comp, my pawn turned it into a little water droplet. I knew that I trusted Kylan. I knew that if he won the veto, he would use it. My whole plan from the start was to backdoor. Travis is an absolute stud. If he was put up on the nomination block, he would have been motivated to win that veto. That would have been one. I had 2 options from the start to go home, was Brent and Travis. And Christian had already saved himself, so he was taken out of that picture. So I had 2 options. Both of them are huge guys. They're studs. I knew they had to be backdoored. And so from that point, literally everybody left that was able to be nominated was either a woman or a minority. So I knew that they had to go up to place hold no matter what, so I could get my end goal, which was getting out of Meathead. From the start, I said that, and in my heart, in my head, I had to run through literally every scenario to accomplish that. And, you know, when you're stuck with only so many potential nominees, you know, I had to do what I had to do at that moment to reach my end goal, and it worked.
Well, do you think though, do you regret like promising too many people safety? Like I know you promised like the first day, like 4 guys upstairs, like Travis included.
Yeah.
Were you worried like, oh wow, I'm promising a lot of people?
Yeah, absolutely. And that goes, at that point in time, I didn't know about the wild card comp. I didn't know that he was going to be able to spin a wheel and save people too. You know, typically in seasons, you got like this big pool of people that, you know, you can choose from. And this season wasn't like that. You had like a very select, I think there was a total of 7 people that I could have nominated. And the people that were there, my original goal, there was only 2 that was even a possibility of going home for me. So I knew that I was going to have to nominate one or the other, as far as minority or a woman. I knew it. They were going to have to place hold. And that internally in my head, that definitely upset me. But I knew the end goal, and I just had to focus on that. And that's what I did. And I even told Derek that like that sucked for me, you know, like having to put them up. But, you know, there was more to that as well. I'm just happy it turned out the way it did, because it turned out the way I wanted it to that week. And it definitely was a roller coaster. But and chaos for sure. Like it was wild, and you know, it turned out how it turned out, and my end goal was reached, and I don't regret my end goal getting reached.
How do you think your HOH week went? Like, do you think it set a tone for the season? Do you think you played too hard? Do you think you played it, like, how do you think it went?
As a fan, I sit on the couch and I'm tired of the first 4 weeks being a big Kumbaya session, you know? And I came in and I knew I was going to crank up the heat. I knew I was going to play hard. And I wanted, as a fan, I didn't want that just sitting there and letting everything just float by. I was going to get in there and I was going to play hard. And, you know, that was my downfall. But at the same time, in my heart, I didn't want to be one of those Rachel Riley, you know, floaters grab a life vest. It's not me. That's not who I am in life. I'm a go-getter, and I go get what I want. So I knew I was going to crank the heat up to try to make, because, you know, the first 4 weeks, you being a fan as well, you know that people put this mask on and they're super happy all the time. And, you know, they try to be something that they may not necessarily actually be. So I wanted to crank that heat up and make sure that, you know, I could actually see who the jocks actually were. So I did crank that heat up for that purpose. So it was a roller coaster, wild for sure. But, you know, it was fun.
That's exactly how I would describe watching it. It was like a roller coaster, which is good TV. Don't get me wrong. But yeah, it's probably a little rough on your game.
It was detrimental to my game. Absolutely. And, you know, I'm aware of that. And honestly, I never looked past week 1. I was so focused and dedicated on week 1. And because when I watched 21, I watched Kimmy and Ovi, and I literally got so upset watching that first 3-4 weeks of 21 that my wife was like, if you want to change, quit complaining about it and get in there and do it. And I knew my end goal. And when I realized that the only people that could place hold was that, you know, internally, it did break my heart and upset me. But I knew that if I just stayed the course, and my end goal would be reached. And it did. And, you know, if people are upset about that, then so be it. My end goal was reached with that. And if the repercussions of this is that future seasons, they realize that that's not okay anymore, that, you know, and I set a tone to where, you know, the jocks go home first instead of everybody else, then I accomplished my goal. You know, and that ultimately to me was playing hard. And if it was meant for me to go out week 2, it was meant for me to go out week 2.
In terms of the women's alliance thing, it can come across a little like, wait, why is a guy starting a women's alliance? How would you, I guess, respond to that? And what was your intention going into that?
A lot of people in the house were very timid. And I did want to see that work. You know, I wanted nothing more than to help them find people that they could trust, get together, solidify that, and back out of it. When they named it, I was like you could clearly see my face. I'm like, let's change the name. Like, I didn't like the name. And I was hoping that no matter what, that they could take that and run with it. And because as a fan, it is nice to see that, because there hasn't been one that has been like rock solid and like worked, you know? So if I could step aside and make sure that they do what I could to protect them throughout the game, that would have been awesome. Like, I would have loved seeing them just go. And, you know, I knew eventually like I would be outed on that, and that was okay. Like, but as a fan, the fan in me wanted to see that. And there's some strong women in that house, and I felt like they, you know, maybe I played too fast, too hard, but I wanted to see them get together and do this. And I thought it was awesome if they would have kept it together. And still, if they were to stick together now, they have the numbers to do whatever they want in that house. And I think it would be awesome to watch that, as long as they don't go after Derek F. But, you know, they've got the numbers to do whatever they want, because I'm sick and tired of watching Jock Alliances go all the way to the end. So I wanted to make sure that they were set up and protected. That way, if the 4 or 5 jocks got together, they weren't able to just completely run the house. There was a whole squad of women that would be like, not this season. And that was my main goal, was stopping that jock alliance in my head. I was like, I've got to stop this. And I was doing anything possible to make sure that they didn't go very far.
You mentioned Derek F. I know you guys got close. He threw you a vote. Were you expecting any other votes, or were you surprised? Or
no, I knew it was going to be unanimous. I even told Derek to vote the other way, so it didn't come back on him. And when they said 11-1, I was actually shocked that he did vote to save me. But, you know, that's my ride or die in that game. I would literally give my game up for him. Like, I adore him so much, and he's such an amazing person. And when we get out of this house, we're definitely going to be lifelong friends.
Who do you think is playing the best game right now? Who could you see going pretty far?
Oh my goodness, Hannah. Hannah is slick. Okay, she's super smart, super intelligent. Like, she went to the memory wall and knew all of our birthdays, all of our kids' names. Like, she is smart, okay? And I think she's going to, if the rest of the house doesn't watch out, she's going to win the whole game. And I'm going to clap and tell her that she deserves it, because she is an awesome game player. She's charismatic. She's in with everybody, and she's just super smart. And I love watching that, and seeing that develop in the house was just awesome. Like, we would pick at each other inside the house, but it was like one of those like brother sister pick at each other. And you know, I love watching that. She is amazing, and she can win this game totally.
Any interest in playing Big Brother again?
If I did, it would be totally different. I would play for me this time, and because I honestly felt like I didn't really play for me this time.
Were you playing for the fans?
Oh no, absolutely not. I knew what I wanted as a fan, and I was playing to that more than I was myself. And that ended up getting me in trouble, because as a fan watching every season, I had a list of I didn't want this happening, and I'm tired of sitting there for 4 weeks and not watching anything happen. And I went in swinging. And the best way to explain it is like, I felt like the wrecking ball that like went this way and created like all this entertainment and chaos. But then I knew that that ball had to come back. And when it came back, it was at the expense of my game. And I knew that. So if I ever played again, it would be for me this time. I'd be quiet. I would be, myself and super quiet. And I wouldn't say nothing to nobody.